Yeah. Welcome back to another edition of the Men Who Cry podcast. Like, subscribe, review, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. If you're not be able to do these things, I have to assume you were unable to hit that parlay of the Knicks winning an MBJ win for the Oscars. On today's episode, we will be talking about those Oscars moments. We will be talking a little bit about what is shaping up to be one of the best times of the year out of this moment. And we will be talking a little bit about that next game. But of course, we have to start with the WBC. Last night, Sunday night, we were recording this on Monday for you guys, Monday afternoon. And I believe sometimes, like, there are nights where if you want to do this as a career, as a business, heavily invest in multi-screens, right? I had to have not one, not two, but three screens going last night to watch everything happening, okay? On the big screen, on the TV behind you, in front of me. Obviously, I got the Knicks game, Knicks Warriors game on, which we'll talk about a little bit later. On my computer screen where I'm recording this podcast, I had the Oscars playing. And then on my phone right here, we had to have the WBC playing. So we literally were triple screening it because you have to have everything on. Also, another really annoying thing about the streaming age, it is impossible to change channels. Like, it is impossible to switch channels. I don't think the Peacock game was simulcast, and I won't shout out the provider that I have just because they got rid of a channel. They got rid of NBC, and it's been very frustrating to try and watch certain games on it now. But NBC doesn't run on this channel now, so trying to watch anything like the Olympics from a couple months ago to any of the Sunday night football games to the basketball games right now, I have to literally leave because I thankfully have hashtag the cock. But the WBC was the thing that I think had its own moment because it was one of the best games I think that you will see, in the sense that that was one of the most talented games and one of the most well played games I think I've seen played. Like, those are the type of games you see played in like the World Series or deep into October. I was watching First Things First. I always like to credit someone that comes with the thought before I did, where it was that might have been in a non All Star game, in a game that counted, the most talent on the field that one team can have, right? I mean, going into this tournament, I kind of knew like what was happening. I didn't know how much of a big deal this was going to be until I looked at the Dominican Republic's lineup. I mean, there are guys on there that you're just like, this is insane. From current stars, the Tatizes, the Sotos of the world, to guys like Cabanero who are like just getting started. Cabanero's 22 years old, and he's just getting his career going. The Vlad Guerreros of the older generation, he's still like in his mid 20s. Like, this is definitely their, I would say, golden age of Dominican baseball, and you would have to think come 2029 when they do this thing again that they're going to be one of, if not the favorites to win this. And reason why they were able to get shut down is because it's a very old adage: good pitching always beats good hitting. And the pitching for the USA simply shut down the Dominican Republic, and they had multiple chances to win the game. And one of the beautiful things, and this is one of the reasons why sports will always matter, for one simple reason: stakes. People care when players care, and there's something on the line, right? And the thing on the line in this one game sample size was the chance to go to the finals and win the entire thing. Unfortunately, at the end of the game, Corey Blast, which I crazy last name to have as a umpire, called a strike that wasn't actually a strike, and that I think put a little bit of a whimper on the game. If I compare some of these things like a great movie that had a terrible ending. Think of any M. Night Shyamalan movie, and the fact that it ended so poorly, I think, puts a little bit of a damper on the game, and people are just frankly going to focus too much on that. But the game itself was great. And it's not that you don't feel bad for the Dominican Republic, but the fact is that the Dominican Republic had multiple opportunities to win. They had men on base multiple times with less than 2 outs in several chances, and they had a man on second in the ninth inning with 1 out. You know, it took the USA's pitching and defense. Credit to Aaron Judge for throwing out Tatis going to third base. Credit Julio Rodriguez for the Dominican Republic, robbing Aaron Judge of a home run. It was just a great display of athleticism that I feel like isn't shown a lot in baseball. That the athleticism from both teams was able to go out there and dominate the game in the way that it should, even though it was a bad way to end the game. I think this thing was so beautiful and is a great thing for baseball, and not just baseball, but what I feel like we are entering is the first monsoon of sports, right? I think this year is a little bit different because normally this time of the year, I would argue it's kind of the dead period of sports. Right once you get after the NBA All-Star game, we typically have a nice little section of crapping on the NBA for a while, which happened again this year. And then it's kind of like that kind of is riding. Some random sports story might pop up here and there. And then we get here, right? Right here, right now is the time where we have the first monsoon. I'm just going to go over the things that are going to happen in the NBA or in sports just between now over the next 2 months, really 3 months in total. Okay. So we have obviously March Madness is starting this week, right? Which we will get onto a little bit. We have March Madness taking place. Okay. Then we're going to have both the NFL draft that's taking place. We're going to have the NHL and the NBA playoffs. We have MLB opening day. We also will have the Masters, and fingers crossed, we also have the WNBA. Oh, and not to mention, this happens to be a year where we're going to have the World Cup. From now, really until probably August, we are going to have one of the best sports runs in years from all the amount of sports that are going to be taking place and all the amount of events that we will be able to have. And I think this is the main reason why people love doing these things and love going to sports and love caring about what sports actually are. And it's a beautiful thing to watch because it will be something that's going to take up so much time and so much pageantry that you're just going to get embroiled in this, especially because it is going to be sports, like I said, with major stakes on it, I mean, the NCAA tournament is a little bit of a decrescendo, right? Like it's great in the beginning, and then it kind of gets more for the diehards the closer we get down to the championship game or to the finals, to be exact. And it's just a beautiful moment for us to see who is going to be the best of the best in all of these sports, right? So one of the best times to happen and one of the best moments to happen yesterday, because we also had the Oscars happening. And this is one of the very few pop culture moments that we will have on this pod, because I want to talk about the two kind of touch points of the night for me, right? So Michael B. Jordan wins his first ever Oscars. He wins Best Actor for his role in Sinners, which I was obviously super happy for. And I'm not just happy for him in general, but I'm happy for everyone who took a chance on a movie called Sinners that came into theaters almost a year ago. And I think has been one of the most revolutionary films that we've had in a significant long time. I won't go through the whole kind of history of it or what the movie actually means per se, but that's already been talked about through a lot of different articles and mentions, and even got its own set of controversy. Shout out to Vanity. But it was a movie for the moment, and he was the guy for the moment. And I just want to go through a little bit of Michael B. Jordan's career, because I think a lot of people know oh, this guy's been acting for a long time. Michael B. Jordan has technically been acting since the 90s, the last year of the 90s, but the 90s. Okay, he is in some of these movies. I'm not going to name everything, but you have him in The Sopranos. Michael B. Jordan is in an episode of The Cosbys. Okay, he's in Hardball. Everyone knows that he's in The Wire. A lot of people know that he's in All My Children. I'm pretty sure every single actor who has ever acted in the history of the world has been in an episode of either CSI or NCIS or Law and Order, some version of those three. He's in a TV series that I really like that doesn't get a lot that much acclaim called Bird Notice. And his big kind of obviously break that obviously a lot of people think about is Fruitvale Station. But before that, he's the starting quarterback for in Friday Night Lights. I think that was like season 4, which is a season that people don't really like. And to be honest, I don't really love that season that much. But it wasn't. It's just part of his legacy. And then he goes on to make Fruitvale Station. He's in another movie called Chronicle that I really like as well. That doesn't really get that much talked about. And then we go into Justice League, The Awkward Moment, which is another good movie with Miles Teller. It's like kind of like a rom-com movie if you want to see. He's in the episode of The Boondocks. He does a bad movie with Fantastic Four, and then that same year he does Creed, and then everything takes off. And the reason why I wanted to kind of break down and just touch on some of this stuff is that this man's been working for a long time. I am essentially talking about a very short, but a 3-decade career. I mean, like I said, it's the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and now we're in the 2020s of this man acting. And it feels like he is not necessarily been an overnight success, because I think a lot of people knew who he was, but the grind for him to become from a child actor to an adult actor to a movie star. I mean, when you make a trilogy, at that point, you are then considered a movie star. To now an Oscar award-winning actor, to me, is one of the great trajectories that you'll just see of all time. Because this man has clearly put in the work. He knew what he was trying to do, and he came through, and then he found his guy in Ryan Coogler to be able to get him to make one of the greatest movies that is going to go down in history. And for him to only be the 6th black actor, he's the 6th black male actor to win the best actor award. He's the 7th black person to win it, as Halle Berry did also win Oscar for best actress. He come across with such humble and grace that he was the right guy for the moment, the right guy that should have won. And I think his career now isn't going to be in such an interesting space, because now, I mean, they're just going to throw movies at this guy now, right? He is now, I don't necessarily think that comparing him to someone like a Denzel is worthy, because I think Denzel is in his own category, but he's now has the juice, and what do you do when you have the juice? And again, he's only, I believe Michael B. Jordan is only 38 years old. Like, he now can essentially play almost any role he wants to do, right? He can be a young father struggling in the South to try to make any money, to being like a hotshot young CEO of a startup company in New York. Like, the amount of roles that are opened up for this guy because of the what age that he's at and the place that he's at in his career and the credential that he has is phenomenal. And I think him having that kind of almost quiet self-confidence, I think, was in great stark contrast of a guy who I think was ultimately the loser of the night, which was Timothée Chalamet. Before I get into Chalamet's kind of night per se, or frankly, I guess his last couple of weeks, we have clearly gotten into the point of just being angry to get angry about things. And maybe I should just be like understanding of that, because Timothy got some backlash for saying that he didn't want the movie industry to be like the Oscars and ballet, for various reasons of why he didn't want things to go down there into that path. One of the things that gets me the most frustrated is when someone says something that is objectively true, but for whatever reason, we have this real weird opinion with the truth. He is right. If you are not an Oscars fan, or you're not a ballet fan, by and large part, if you have a free night on a Friday, no one is going to be able to even go to these things, because they, one, are frankly done in a lot of major cities, and majority of the country, if not the world, doesn't live in those places. But most people can go see a movie, right? The vast majority of people who have a typical 9 to 5 job can spend, unfortunately, it's a little more expensive now than it was even when I was a kid, but can spend the 20 to $50 it takes to take you and someone to go see a movie. It's still relatively affordable thing to do. That's why it's very popular. And so for people to now act so aghast at something that we all know is true, again, speaks to the idea of the worm turning, right? And I think this started a bit a year ago when he won, I think he won the SAG Awards, where he said, or it was either the SAG Awards or the Critic Choice Awards, where he said, I'm chasing greatness. And he kind of named the guys that he was trying to kind of chase. I get where he's coming from, right? There is nothing wrong with chasing greatness. There's nothing wrong with wanting to chase greatness. I think people have a problem with you poking your chest out and saying, I'm going for that. I don't see it to be any different than someone calling their shot in a sports game or saying, like, hey, I'm going to be with that beautiful person. I think there's a very thin line between the idea of being extra confident and cocky. And I think the people who are able to walk it the best are the people who are able to manage people's expectations of them. I don't think that, Michael B. Jordan thinks of himself any less than Timothy Chalamet. I don't, right? I think to be the best or one of the best at your position, whether it's a doctor, a lawyer, basketball player, an actor, you have to have a level of delusion that you believe in yourself so much that you can go out there and get that thing. And I just think Timothy Chalamet doesn't hide it well, like, frankly. And I think that they didn't have any effect on anything that happened after the fact because the Oscar voting happened before those comments were even made. So for people who are saying that cost him the Oscar, it didn't. But I do think that that people wanted to humble him, right? He's a young guy. I think Timothy just turned 30 years old. He's the toast of a town. He's dating a Kardashian. He's sitting courtside at Knicks games. He's living the life that I think a vast majority of people, either his age or around his age, want to live. And I think when people get too high, there is a sense that people want to knock you down, right? One of my favorite Greek mythology stories, right? If anyone's into Greek mythology, I love Greek mythology. One of the few things I like looking up on TikTok is there's a guy who does like Greek mythology stories, and he uses the AI to actually like showcase like the stories. It's not perfect sometimes, like sometimes it look a little weird, but it's beautiful to see like the stories of what's being made, right? And one of my favorite Greek stories is the story of Icarus, right? Icarus and his father are essentially locked away in a cave, and I believe Zeus locked them away. And essentially, to set themselves free, Icarus's father crafts wings on them, right? And makes these wings on their backs. And he uses like beeswax and all these other like things to push it to get these guys wings to be able to fly out this cave and to get them home. The only thing that his father says is, Icarus, do not fly too close to the sun because your wings will burn up and you'll fall down. They set off and they're flying. Flying in the air, they're flying in the air until Icarus gets too high on his own supply and he soars up to the sky. And like his father says, the wings burn off, he falls down, he dies. And the story is essentially a parable about pride and cockiness, right? Don't fly too close to the sun, Icarus, as people would often say. And that is what ends up being the fall, is when people are getting too high on whether it's their own ego, whether it's their own success, and unfortunately will be humbled. And I think the Oscars, frankly, were trying to humble him with the jokes that they were also clearly making at him, right? I was even seeing people making points about they brought Misty Copeland out for the Sinners to make fun of Timothy. I'm like, you guys are doing way too much thinking if you think that they cared that much about the ballet. Mind you, a ballerina who is retiring, by the way. And I think ultimately this will be a good thing for Timothy because, like any sports person or someone who likes sports, losing is a part of the process. And I think he understands that. And I think he is going to be a guy who is going to come out and do his damnedest to win this. I would be shocked if this guy never wins an Oscar, like truly shocked. But I also think that they are going to make him wait. For whatever reason, I think they're going to make this guy wait. And I think that there is a level of humbleness that they want him to experience before they actually see this man rise up and become what I think will be this generation's new Leonardo DiCaprio. But speaking of which, speaking of sports and speaking of Timothy Chalamet sports, no, not even gonna talk about that real quick. Almost fucked up, messed up. The thing that I want to talk about was Sinners versus One Bell After Another. I saw both movies only once each time. I thought Sinners was the superior movie of the two. But I think what has happened now is, once again, everything needs to have like a way deeper, like, frankly, seem like racist meaning of everything. And I think one of the main criticisms or one of the main points that people try to point out about One Bell After Another is that it's Tiana Taylor's role. And I generally have a question. I don't necessarily have a strong opinion on one side or the other, but I just have a question is, are minorities, specifically Black people, are we allowed to play roles that, while the race of the role is important, it is not necessarily important that that role is Black? And here's what I mean by that. Tiana Taylor is playing a Black revolutionary in One Ballot Left Another. I'm sorry if I spoiled this movie that came out like 8 months ago at this point. She's playing a Black revolutionary in the movie. She's not in the movie for very long, actually. And is doing things in the movie that, objectively speaking, if you know anything about the history of any Black female revolutionary, does not follow that to a T. She dimes out her family, or her friends. She doesn't listen to anyone in the group. She leaves her child behind. She snitches on them, gets them all, like, not all, but a significant amount of them all killed. And I would also maybe is fucking 2 different white men. There's no historical reference to any Black person or female who acted that way in these times. However, I don't fundamentally think that Tiana Taylor's role had anything to do with her being Black. What I mean by that is, I think that that role was designed to be a non-white person. I don't necessarily think that that role had to be someone who's Black. Meaning, if an Asian woman was playing that role, I don't think there's really anything different that takes place. Obviously, they're not going to be the same person. There's going to be beat differences. I'm not trying to say that, like, you can just, it's so ubiquitous to have this person versus this person. What I'm saying is that the overall point of the movie and the overall beats of the movie don't change, right? She's still a revolutionary. She's still fetishized by, it's definitely one white person. I wouldn't say Leo's character was personally fetishizing her. But that's all the same. And I am just curious to see, was there a need for there to be maybe a historical accuracy of her character in a movie that is based on true events but is not a historical document, right? This is not a documentary. We are not actually reenacting some type of real revolutionary moment. This is just essentially a movie. And so I don't know. I think some people took it, the former, the way I explained it, as her, no, like, this has to be it. And I think if I'm leaning on one side, I would say it's more of the latter. I think that it is fine for a character to be just a character, right? I don't think it was anything truly offensive per se. I don't think, like I said, I don't think it was accurate. But I don't necessarily think that that was the point of it. I don't think there was a desire for her to be accurate. I think that, frankly, I think PTA said it in his acceptance speech. I think he wanted to represent their mother in this, who, if people don't know, PTA's wife is Maya Rudolph, who is Black. And I think that's maybe a deeper layer of thinking that I can't even get to. But that's how it broke down. And while once again, I think Sinners should have won the best picture. I do think that One Ballad After Another was the second best movie of the year. And I think it was fine that movie ended up taking place. Now we can switch over to Timothée Chalamet's favorite team, the New York Knicks, who was the third thing on the big screen of the 3-screen nights Sunday night. Taking on the Warriors. Steph Curry did not play. Steph Curry, who has lost only one time in Madison Square Garden in his career, and the one game he lost was the game he had 56 points. Oh man, that was not fun at that time. He did not play. Majority of the Warriors did not play. Jimmy Butler didn't play. Draymond Green didn't play. Chris Stapps, who one of my friends is convinced has AIDS, did not play. Majority of their team didn't play, and yet at one point in this game, the Warriors had a 21-point lead. And the reason why this is very weird and strange is because I don't really know exactly how to make out of this Knicks team, right? The team that I think has by far the most pressure on any team in the NBA to make the finals. I don't think there's any team currently that if they miss the finals would feel as if they need to break up the team, right? Like, OKC doesn't make the finals. I think that would be very disappointing. If they lose in the second round, I think it would be highly disappointing, but I don't think you just won the championship. I don't think anyone's going to belittle them for missing it, especially when we've had several previous champs not even get to round 3 of the final. Same thing with the Lakers, same thing with Detroit, Cleveland. Maybe Cleveland might be in a little bit of the same boat. Boston definitely is playing with house money. And this Knicks team is one of the best teams in the league. They have the 5th best net rating. They have the 3rd best offense. One of the biggest things, they are 6th in defense. A team that has Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns are 6th in defense. And yet they play these games where you don't really know why they come out with this level of effort and energy and what's taking place. And I think what ends up happening is that fans, most fans, always want to look for reasons why a team will win, or typically will try to look for reasons why their team won't win. It's a duality of fandom, right? And I think for the positive fans are oftentimes thinking that we're getting so close to the playoffs, these things, quote unquote, don't matter. When they need to turn it up, they'll be able to turn it up. And I hear some of that. But the also side of it, of where fans are saying the glass half empty is, tends to be, why do they keep getting off to these bad starts? You play a real team in the playoffs, you get down 21, you're not coming back and winning, which is a very fair point. And I think ultimately a lot of this stuff has come down to Mikal Bridges. I think the two guys on the team that seem to get the most crap from time to time, it slings between, Josh Hart gets a lot of crap as well, but it swings between, I think, Mikal Bridges and Karl-Anthony Towns. And I think the reason why Karl-Anthony Towns gets a lot of crap is because the Knicks traded away, once again, fan favorite, Dr. DiVincenzo, and he is the poster child for a Bill Simmons quote one time of being a 90-10 guy. A 90-10 guy is 90% of the things that they do are great and they love it and it really helps your team. But they just do 10% things that are so bad and it stands out so much that when they do it, it takes up and is talked about like the 90%. Russell Westbrook is like probably the king of the 90-10 guy. Rajon Rondo, I remember one time for Simmons, was one of those guys, a big 90-10 guy. And it's frustrating, but I think by and large part, he has settled into playing, frankly, really well over the last 2 months of the season. His season isn't maybe as good as what I think his career has been, but overall, I think this is some of the best basketball he has played. I think Mikal, it looks like he needs to hug a friend. There are times where he looks so sad and lost on the bench that I don't know what has happened to him. He just looks afraid. In the last game that this just happened against the Warriors, he played 21 minutes. Landry Shamet and Jordan Clarkson, who are 2 guys on minimum contracts, played more minutes than Mikal Bridges. He got benched again in the fourth quarter. And once is a trend, once is a misnomer, two is a trend. These are now two different coaches, Tom Thibodeau and Mike Brown, who has benched Mikal Bridges in fourth quarters. And ultimately, this comes down to an issue of what Mikal Bridges was traded for. I don't actually think a lot of people, I think people would be frustrated with Mikal if he just signed as a free agent, right? I think people would be frustrated with Mikal if he was just traded for like 2 first-round picks, right? Or a first-round pick and a good player, like what happened with Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Johnson, right? The thing that has made people, I think, jump overboard and be on this man's back is that he is essentially the reason why some fans believe that the team will be good, not great, right? Because even though this man has had multiple leg injuries and might be on the downside of his career, they look at that as saying he is the reason why the Knicks can't get Giannis Antetokounmpo. I disagree wholeheartedly with that, just because I think hindsight is 2020. You're not gonna really know if this guy's really available, and there's so many different factors I think that go into play with moves like that. But he frankly isn't playing well. And I think it's getting to the point where he might need to come off the bench. It's that bad that he's not playing this well. And ultimately, if he's not playing up to his best, they're not going to win anything. And ultimately, it is an issue for him to see him wilt under the pressure of New York. And again, I have seen great players come here and fall the fuck apart. Now, I haven't said Mikal's fall apart. Mikal's had big playoff games. He's had big regular season games. He just had a great game against the Spurs a month ago at this point. But I've seen great players fall here. And it's not the easiest thing when you constantly checking your Twitter account and everyone just keeps calling you Mickey 5 picks and all sort of stuff like that, right? At the end of the day, he's going to be one of the big swings for this team. And to see if he's able to break out of this will be interesting to see. Because a team that's going the complete opposite way are the Golden State Warriors. They're right now 2 games under 500. They're only a half game up on the Trailblazers for that last spot in the play-in. All the other teams in the West Conference are essentially tanking, so it doesn't actually seem that there will be a reason for this guy or for the Warriors, per se, to miss the playoffs. But they are not playing well. They have a 5-game road trip all on the West Coast. Steph Curry is supposed to be reevaluated in another 2 weeks. And again, reevaluate. He has another knee injury. And I think that we are, like I've said kind of a couple times when it comes to Steph and it comes to Kevin Durant and we're going with LeBron, we are in the end times with these guys. And you're not ever really going to know when it's over until it's done. And I think, frankly, if they don't make the playoffs, which the Warriors historically have not done well in the play-in games, and they have missed out on the playoffs several times from playing in the play-in, this is going to be one of the last kind of runs for Steph, and I don't know if he'll ever have one of those big moments ever again. This Warriors team is cooked. Like their team is not doing anything come playoff time, and unless they make that move for LeBron, which I think is probably like one of their only moves left if that happens in the summertime, it's just sad to see him go. Steph's 38 years old. Next season, he'll be 39 years old. He said he wants to keep playing. He hasn't intimated that he wants to stop at any time soon. But the moments are getting less and less. He's playing less games. He's getting hurt more often, which makes sense. He's getting hurt at the worst time of the year. He got hurt he got hurt in the playoffs last year, pulled a hamstring, and he wasn't able to go. And that's what happens when you become an older player. You just get hurt more often. And I think seeing this Warriors team kind of deal with their own version of the Kobe retirement tour with Steph Curry is interesting to kind of evaluate, because ultimately their team has just not been good enough. And until they fully kind of rebuild the team, they're kind of just going to be stuck praying that Steph gets them to be good. And the odd part is Steph's still really good. But the issue now is you can be really good. You just can't be really good for 75 games a year. Steph's going to be closer to a 60 a game player at best, and him and LeBron linking up would be very interesting. There'll be a lot of guys that have to be moved. Maybe Draymond gets moved. Maybe Jimmy Butler gets moved. One of those guys definitely has to be moved in order for that to work. But yeah, it's definitely when the league moves on, the league moves on. And while Steph can still have his moments anytime he needs to, he's just not on the court enough anymore to be able to have as many as we would like. All right, y'all. Thanks again for listening to the Men Who Cry podcast. Please, again, like, subscribe, review, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend, tell a friend. Be back talking all these good sports with you guys next week. All right, y'all. Peace out.